Chang Center down in Tampa, Florida, home of the South Florida Bulls, where UConn looks to push their win streak to 131 consecutive games in the American Athletic Conference. Tip-off coming your way top of the hour right here on SNY as we welcome you to the UConn Women's Basketball pregame show. I'm Gary Apple sitting alongside Kara Walters, and the Huskies coming off that 18-point defeat at the hands of South Carolina on Monday night. It was their third game against a top 10 team this year and their third defeat to a top 10 team. So, Kara, let's begin right there and why they have struggled against the likes of Baylor and Oregon and then most recently South Carolina.
I think it boils down to confidence. I mean, this is a team that's missed a lot of shots in big-time games. I feel like they go into the games scared, nervous. People are talking about this is a good team, not a great team of UConn, and it's kind of gotten to them. So fundamentally, this is a team that fundamentally should know what they're doing, but you see breakdowns in their offense, especially fundamentally, as far as cuts and stagnant and all those sorts of things. So against the top 10 teams, I think there's not as much experience. People are in different roles this year. Crystal, you see, she's a big-time player in these big games, but other than that, you flat out don't have the experience that you had in games in years past, and it is what it is. Like Gino said, they've only lost to 3 of the best teams in the country, so I think they're doing all right, but you don't see the teams of the past. But keep in mind, Gary, 2005, 6, 7, same type of situation. People in new roles, they didn't win national championships then. So we've seen this before, but just in those big-time games, they don't have the experience.
How much of this is, listen, there's no Nafisa Collier this year. There's no Katie Lou Samuelson. Players are in different positions and being guarded differently than they have over the course of their careers. How much of that is playing in to the tough shoot, like Kristen Williams struggling to shoot the basketball, right? She had that huge game against Notre Dame last year. Different story so far this year in the big games. How much of that is the result of what I just mentioned? Huge.
I mean, you don't have, like you said, Katie Lou Samuelson, Nafisa Collier, where they focused on those players last year, left opportunities for Kristen and Megan. Now, that's not the case. Dawn Staley said against South Carolina, they were trying to not let Megan get set. Their focus was Megan. Don't let her get her feet under her to shoot the jump shot or take it off the bounce. You know, Kristen Williams, we've really seen her go downhill in these big-time games. Same thing, they're focusing on her. They know that she likes to take it off the bounce. She knows all these other things. But, however, that doesn't make up for the other things, right? Rebounding, defense. So you can guard a player all you want, but you should be able to get from them those other things.
Defense has been a big issue in the big game. So UConn fans and the media alike not used to the Huskies losing in the regular season. And after the game on Monday, the Hall of Famer Gino Auriemma had a few choice words to share in his postgame address to the media.
We're allowed to lose a damn game once in a while where the other team plays better than us. So how about you write that somewhere? South Carolina played way better than Connecticut. That's allowed to happen once in a while. And it's not like, what did you guys do wrong? We were #1 earlier this season, weren't we? Hard to believe, right? So who gives a what it is? Where you are, 4, 5, 12, 17, 25, who cares? The object is to get through the season and get into the NCAA tournament this year. Some years, the object is we're going to be a #1 seed and we're going to win the whole thing. This year, the object is get through the season, get in the NCAA tournament, see what happens. This year, we're like every other team in the country. God forbid. Horror of horrors.
Yes, Gino, very feisty after the game on Monday. Horror of horrors is what he says right there. So what about these defeats? From the UConn standpoint, do they get blown out of proportion?
I definitely think they get blown out of proportion. And like you said, flat out, South Carolina was longer, bigger, stronger, more experienced. I mean, there were so many things, but they did do some good things in that game. And nobody points out the good things that they did. They actually had more points in the paint. When South Carolina has Boston, they held down their fast break points. So people don't see the good parts of the game. They just go, ugh, what are you doing? And it's not fair. It's not fair to compare that. And I think even though the girls aren't on social media, or you hear that. You hear that a little bit, right? So it starts making you think, but definitely blown out of proportion. Gino was right. Didn't have to say it the way he did, but we get your point, Gino. And I don't think it's fair, and this is a game that's still won. Any coach in America would love this team, right?
Well, yes.
That's the way it goes.
And he said it the way he did because he's Gino. And that's, whether it's a motivational tactic or just the reality of the situation right now, that's the way he's gone about his business for over 30 years. And he's had some pretty good success doing it that way. So what about, as he said right there, listen, just one of those seasons, going to try to get to the postseason, which there'll be maybe a 2 or a 3 seed in the tournament, and then see where they go from there. Do you believe they are title contenders? And if not, at this moment, is there anything they can do to change your opinion?
I think, you know, you have South Carolina, Baylor, and Oregon, and then there's going to be that one spot left, right, Gare? I think a lot has to go right. This is a good team, not a great team, but they need to get some good matchups. They need some people, depends where they're placed. That's why these games are so important going forward. I think it's going to take a little more luck than it has in years past, recent years, I should say, because again, I said 2005, 6, 7, they didn't go to the Final Four. That was disappointing. But there's always a chance, and see what happens in the next couple weeks, right? They're not going to make huge strides, but maybe Anna Markarov can get some more confidence. I think she's been a little bit of a disappointment. I think Kristen Williams, Megan Walker, if they can kind of step it up a notch and play in big-time games, they're capable of doing it. Is it going to be a harder, longer road? Sure is, but don't count them out yet.
Worth noting here, UConn has been to 12 consecutive Final Fours. Right now, the Huskies remain undefeated all time. In the American Conference, 29-0, by the way, all time against South Florida. It's also worth noting here that USF comes in. They've had a pretty good season so far. They're tied for second place in the American Conference. As we bring in our Maria Marino right now. She joins us from down in Tampa. Her report is brought to us by Toyota. And Maria, 6 games to go now in the regular season. What are the things that UConn is focusing on to get better here as they move forward?
Well, it really is crunch time as far as preparing for the NCAA tournament. But aside from just evaluating strengths and weaknesses, I think this coaching staff understands that a huge factor with this team is their mental state. And so it's really imperative that they just build as much confidence as possible throughout this stretch of games they have here, especially since some of their struggles have stemmed from early shooting woes that have then kind of taken them out of games. And it may sound cliche, but when I spoke to Coach Auriemma this week, he said that especially for an inexperienced group, they really have to stay one game at a time. They can't get ahead of themselves. So it's a little bit of a balance, right? Because you want to prepare for the tournament, but you can't sort of take for granted these next few matchups, especially against some of the tougher opponents in this American Conference. But as far as X's and O's are concerned, it's really the same. You know, it hasn't changed all season long. On defense, just communicating, recognizing when to help, and then on offense, just being more assertive and decisive as far as what they want to do and making plays. And of course, you just can't abandon the game plan when things get tight, which really becomes more important when you're playing the tougher teams.
Well, I think you're right, Maria. They need to shoot the ball much better as they move forward here. 36% is what they shot against South Carolina, 29% in that loss to Baylor. So that needs to change. We'll see on the broadcast coming up just a little bit, Maria, and we're just getting going here on our UConn pregame broadcast as we head to break. Going to get a look at UConn's leading scorer. That's Megan Walker. She was 9 points under her season average in that defeat against South Carolina, looking to get back on track today down in Florida. And when we come back on our show, Kristen Williams going to speak about her offensive inconsistency this year, plus Kara on why those inconsistencies affect more than just her. And we're coming back in a moment. Kristen Williams, she has increased her offensive productivity this season. We got to look at the numbers presented by Town Fair Tire. But her efficiency has dropped, and she was asked recently to explain the reasoning behind those offensive struggles at practice on Friday. Listen in.
I've been struggling all season, whether it's a big game or not a big game. It's not nerves. It's just different this year than last year. Like I've been saying all year, the defense is focusing more on me, Meg, Crystal. So I guess we're not used to that kind of pressure, so it's kind of hard to get your shot off. So that's been kind of the theme this year. But we've been in the gym working on that.
So there you go. Exactly what you and I have spoken about. The fact that there aren't other players to key on, and the likes of Megan and Kristen and Crystal, they're seeing a lot of defense in their face at all times.
I like how she owns it, right?
Yes, which is great to hear.
It is good.
Yes.
She's not making excuses or blaming anyone else. She knows the problem, now solve it. But she's right. There's so much more pressure on them. They're playing roles they didn't play in the past, and they're not used to this kind of pressure offensively. Now, again, we said defensively rebounding, there's no excuse for that, right? Unless teams are really keying on boxing them out. I think the good part has been when they go backdoor. That has been a good release for UConn because they are being pressured so much. The back door is really available. And then when Kristen Williams misses her first couple of shots, it seems to go downhill from there. Wouldn't you agree, Gary?
I would.
She needs that confidence. She needs that first one to go down and then do other things, because that's what's important. You can't focus so much that your offense is bad and then you forget to do other things, little things. It's not all about the thing Gino teaches you when you come to UConn, the very first thing when you walk in the door. It's not all about you. So find a way how you can contribute, even though shots aren't falling, to set up your other players, right? If Olivia's scoring inside, they have to double in there. It opens things up for you in the outside so you don't have pressure. So figure out a way to do other things that will get your offense going.
I think Kristen is a huge key as to whether UConn's going to make this late push and really surprise some people. She can be an offensive juggernaut. We saw her against Notre Dame last year, right? It was a coming out party for her.
Yeah.
If she can be that player again, get that swagger back.
Swagger.
Right? Because she has swagger sometimes.
Yep.
It will make all the difference in the world for UConn. There's Autumn Makarat getting ready to go. She needs to have a good game today. Scoreless against South Carolina on Monday night. We're back in just a moment. Time for a look now at UConn's upcoming schedule. After today's game with South Florida, UConn heads home for a couple of games. They've got Tulane and Central Florida, and then they head back out on the road for games against Cincinnati and Houston. And for more on the Huskies, I want to send it now to Alan Bestwick and Meg Como. They've got the call for us once again today from Tampa. Guys.
All right, Gary. So, Meg, we're through with all the high-profile ranked team games against the non-conference opponents. 6 games left to go, all conference games from here to the conference tournament. Have we learned about this team enough to know what they might be able to accomplish in the postseason?
You know, I think we've learned a lot about this team, and we've seen them struggle. But I don't know if the key is the team has to believe in what they're capable of and what they can do and what they can accomplish. Because we've seen in those big games, I mean, they shot the ball poorly. They came out from the rip and didn't attack, as we are used to seeing UConn teams do in the past. But I kind of like that they've shown some fight, particularly in the end of in the fourth quarter of that South Carolina game. Yep. They fought back a little bit, and I don't think they did that against Oregon. So that's progress. But this team has to only be compared to this team, not previous UConn teams.
And it has to be hard for these players to operate in that environment. Gino has said to us several times during the course of the season, this is a young team where basketball maturity is concerned. So 6 conference games left. Is that enough of a road for them to take that next step?
I think so, because there are some tough games ahead. USF is a very tough opponent. So here, and they play well at home. This is going to be a tough one. They got USF up at home. They're at Cincinnati. That's going to be a bear of a game. And I'm not saying that because they're the Bearcats, but it's going to be a tough contest. They have some, and UCF at home on senior day, typically an emotional game. They have some tough contests, and I think it's the perfect amount of competition for them to learn a little bit more about themselves and get ready for postseason play.
I like the pun about the Bearcats. Gary, I'll leave you with this. That's no bull for Meg.
Wow, Alan, you and Meg really stepping it up down there in Florida today. So, listen, we've talked about, in fact, 6 games to go. There is time for this team to try to find their footing heading for the postseason. One of the players who has come up big in all of the big games has been Crystal Dangerfield. She had 25 against South Carolina, shot it well, 9 of 18 from the field, also played very well in the Oregon game. So what's differentiated her game? Why has she been able to deliver in big situations?
Bottom line, Gary, is experience. experience. I mean, experience, and the clock is ticking. In Crystal Dangerfield's world, she has not gotten a national championship. You leave UConn without a national championship, it's a little disappointing in that world. Sad but true. So time is running out, and she just flat out has the most experience. So I've talked before, right? They have nobody that puts on the cape and saves the day, but I got to tell you, Crystal Dangerfield, she put on that cape in that South Carolina game, single-handedly kept them in the game until the fourth quarter. Like Meg said, they did. They showed some fight in the fourth quarter, but by then it was too late. You only have 2 points in the first quarter, forget it. It's hard to dig out of that hole, but Crystal tried single-handedly what she could do to keep them in this game, and I think it flat out has to do with experience, and Gino has given her the green light this year to shoot first, pass second. So she's kind of learned to not just to be a distributor and facilitator, but be a scorer.
Yeah, I was just thinking for a moment she could jump into the phone booth and put the cape on, but they don't even have phone booths anymore, right? Got to go someplace else for that. Crystal, by the way, 25 points, as I mentioned, in that game against South Carolina. Going to take a look at her performance moving forward in just a little bit. Plus, going to hear more from Gino Auriemma on the state of the UConn program. We're coming back in just a moment. Number 5, UConn and South Florida. Tip-off coming your way less than 10 minutes from now. Olivia Nelson and Dota getting set to go. Recently, Maria Marino sat down with the head coach, Gino Auriemma. The latest edition of the Gino Auriemma Show is on the way this week, and he followed up on his comments following the defeat on Monday night.
Whenever we lose, the story's never about who won. It's UConn lost. And the story's never about how well the other team played. It's what did you do wrong? How could you lose? And the reason you lost is because you did this wrong. Well, who's to say that if we did all those things right, we still wouldn't have lost? So this idea that we're going to do everything right every single night and that we should win every night, you know, like, get over yourself. Like, I've already lived that life where we win every single night. I know what that feels like. I know what goes into that, you know? And I also understand that some nights you don't do everything right, and the other team is really good, and they're better than you, and you played lousy, and they play great. All right? So, losing is part of life. Playing bad is part of life. Even though we've created a fantasy world, it's part of life. Get over it. You know? I shouldn't have to explain every bad pass. I mean, I don't get it. I really don't. The people that have achieved what we've achieved, they would never ask that kind of question because they would understand. So it's usually people that have no idea how to do what we're done, and they want to know why we didn't do it again. And that's just life. It is what it is. Like my mother says, that's what it is.
Yes, indeed. The latest edition of the Gino Auriemma Show coming up on Wednesday, immediately following our post-game coverage here on SNY at 9:30. So I thought it was interesting. He said, I've already lived that life. Yeah. And I do contend that he's going to live that life again with all the talent that he's got coming in beginning next year. But what do you make of the women's game as it's currently constituted with UConn down just a little bit? Is the women's game better with a dominant UConn team or with more parity?
I think it's both, right? When it's a dominant team, you get attention for the sport. You get media attention, that sort of thing. And by the way, Gino, it's just the media's job to nitpick you. That's what they do to get a story, so forgive. So I think that's good for women's basketball, but now I feel like the parity is also a good thing. It's nice to see other teams do that, and like you said, they'll catch up again.
I believe they will, and I do say this, that when they were going on those huge winning streaks, 90 games, and you know, the national attention, you know, the evening news, the CBS Evening News, the NBC Evening News, they're running UConn stories on making history. I do believe in my heart of hearts. I love the parity in the game, but when UConn is going at the rate they were going a few years ago, I just think they draw more attention to the women's game.
Well, certainly when we started in '95, there was no attention to the women's game. Then we were on the Regis and Kathy Lee show.
Right.
We were all over the place.
Yes.
And that, I definitely think, got the snowball rolling down the hill, and it's gotten bigger and bigger. So I see both sides of that, like you said, the attention. And that's part of the reason people are criticizing now, right? Because they got that attention, that goes with it. But I think both ways. I think it's nice to have that parity women's basketball, but I also do believe it brings a lot to the sport to have big-time wins.
So UConn 20-3, 10-0 in the American Conference, and we have this conversation. 20-3. We're closing in on game time down in Tampa. UConn, by the way, 984 consecutive games without losing, back-to-back games. They look to keep that streak moving forward today. What to watch for in today's game when we come right back. Starting lineup for UConn, it is presented by Subaru. No change with Dangerfield and Williams, Makarat, Walker, and Olivia Nelson-Adota in the middle. So, Kara, what to watch for early on in today's game?
This is a very strong South Florida team. They're physical, so UConn needs to handle that. They're not a good rebounding or shooting team. UConn can get their fast break game going, and from three-point land, let's kind of make up for that South Carolina game and knock down some shots.
Can UConn rebound the basketball? That's big. That's a pretty good rebounding South Florida team.
Yeah, and they did well actually against South Carolina. They out-rebounded them, but they can get their fast break game going, which hasn't been going. Let's see if we can get Crystal going in this game as well. Excuse me, Kristen going as well.
Crystal has been going.
Yes.
All right, Kara and I going to see you back on the halftime show right now. Enjoy UConn and South Florida right here on SNY. It is the UConn Women's Halftime Report. It's brought to you by our local Ford stores. Gary Apple back alongside Kara Walters. And how about these numbers right here? UConn, 984 consecutive games without losing back-to-back games. And they've never lost to South Florida, 29-0 all-time against the Bulls. But UConn down by 4 at the half. We heard Gino talk about the offense being stagnant. What are you seeing, Kara?
Well, they have 10 turnovers. South Florida has 18 points off those turnovers, but I think obviously that goes hand in hand. You're turning the ball over. You're not running good offense. I mean, things just aren't flowing. They can't get it going. And don't ask me why. If Gino doesn't know why, I can't tell you either, as he said as he walked off. But part of the thing is, honestly, and again, post player, I think they should go through Olivia more. I think Olivia's playing a great game. When they get it inside, good things happen. They're not double teaming her. So I think just sloppy offense is leading to turnovers, and South Florida is capitalizing on those turnovers. So it starts with the offense, and then you see the confidence kind of go down.
Yes.
And you see South Florida. South Florida's done a good job. Defensively, they've done some things to rattle UConn, and they need to just be able to handle it. And, well, South Florida's also knocked down threes like crazy.
Yes, they have. And you talk about confidence and swagger, and we spoke about swagger on the pregame show. That UConn swagger is not there at the moment, so they trail it by 4 at the half. They're just 2 of 10 from beyond the arc so far in this game. Much more to come here on the Ford Halftime Report. Going to look ahead to the second half. Let's go to hear from Evelyn Adebayo on being UConn's first English-born player. Kara and I back from Studio 31 in just a moment. Here we go. First half stats now, and they're presented by your local Ford stores. UConn not shooting it well. 34% in that first half. Don't forget, in the loss to South Carolina, they shot just 36%. And in the loss to Baylor, they shot just 29%. So the Huskies trail it by 4 at the break. More on our halftime show in a moment. Gary Apple back alongside Kara Walters. First half category leaders presented by Travelers. Megan Walker leads the Huskies. She's their only player in double figures. She's got a dozen. We recently sat down with Evelyn Adebayo. She's UConn's first English-born player, and she shared what it's like to be that first at UConn.
It's crazy, honestly. Like I just said, from London, like being the first one from London, not even just from London, from England, period, to be here, like, that's honestly, like, a great honor, you know, like, I don't even take it for granted, and, like, I know, like, that's going to be, like, another chip on my shoulder that I got to use this year, because everyone from back home's, like, really supporting me, you know, because, you know, it's a big deal, like, we will watch UConn back home and we will dream of being here, like, so from all the great players we've had in the past from England, and for me to be the first one here, like, that's crazy, so I honestly have to, like, do my people proud, basically, like, because it's a big deal. And I'm honestly very, you know, honored and privileged and blessed to be here.
Big responsibility, being at UConn. It really is a global program, as we heard right there. What must UConn do to come back and win this game in the second half?
A couple things. Stop letting South Florida hit the threes, get some fast break points, hit the boards. They're getting beat on the boards, so a lot of things.
All right, Karen, I see you back on the post-game show. Second half on the way. All right, Alan, we thank you. Back to you and Meg in just a little bit. What a difference. What a difference a half can make. That was we heard Gino there with Maria. He was very pleased with what he saw in that second half.
Very different interview than in the first half,
my
right?
gosh, yes.
It's amazing what you do when you listen to Coach Oriema, basically, is what he said. Offensively, they came out with a different energy in the second half. They had 10 turnovers in the first half. They ended the game with 12. They were more disciplined. They were efficient. They did everything they needed to do offensively. They set screens. Good things happen when this team sets screens and goes backdoor against pressure. Also, they got into Olivia Nelson-Adota, which, again, as a post player, I think that's what you should do, run through the post. And she just seemed really confident, Garrett, especially in the second half. It was like she had 3 fouls. She had fouls early on, but she managed it really well. She played smart on both ends of the court, but when the ball goes into her, good things happen. People start moving.
Well, let's follow up on Olivia Nelson-Adota because she looked like a different player today, and she has gradually been finding her mojo and the confidence. She demanded the basketball.
Yes.
She worked hard for position. She was also effective on the defensive end. But what are you seeing from her that's leading to this growth over these last couple of games?
I'm seeing a couple meetings with Coach Oriema in the office. I've been there before, trying to challenge her, saying, Olivia, this is your choice. You could put this team on your back, and you could be the difference maker going into tournament time. She came out with just a concerted effort to get her the ball, and she looked like automatic. When she looks to score, and she thinks score first, that's when she's productive. When she hesitates, anytime you have one-on-one, Olivia should take it to the hole. Early on in the first half, she didn't always do that. Someone is just one person. I would find that disrespectful almost if you're not doubling down on me. So every time, Olivia, you're one-on-one, you take it to the basket, and she sure changed that in the second half.
Certainly did, and she shot it efficiently. She was 9 of 12 from the field. She had the 8 rebounds. She had the 4 block shots, and so she played very well for UConn in the win today as UConn goes to 21-3 on the season, 11-0 in the American Conference. Game stats presented by People's United Bank. UConn ends up shooting 48% in the half. Again, they did not shoot it very well from downtown. That's something that needs to get fixed as they move forward. They dominated in the paint. 42-18 was the advantage for UConn over South Florida in the paint. As we head back down Tampa right now, I'm going to welcome back in Alan and Meg. And guys, one of the things that Gino spoke about with Maria a moment ago was what he saw from the freshman, Aubrey Griffin. Really strong game for her. She was active off the bench. She had 8 points. From a defensive standpoint, what did you see from Aubrey that really helped UConn change the game when she came into the game?
Energy and athleticism, which is what she brings, right? She has this knack of anticipating where the ball's going, the passes. There was that one play where she was guarding someone out in the corner for 3 and looked in the offensive player's eyes and saw the ball coming and just got her hands up and knocked it away. She just brought that energy to the defense.
She's so disruptive. You know, she comes in we can't use the word athleticism enough with this kid, but her active hands, active feet, being in the right place at the right time. And she made huge plays when they needed them, getting big stops, and then a couple of fast break layups that she finished. I know she had at least 6 points in fast break layups that they really needed today. And it was just, you know, you want a player coming in off the bench that's going to change the complexion of the game. She did that here today.
Meg, big game by Olivia Nelson-Adota. She looked confident. Let me ask you this. I know what I think as a post player. Now they go inside to Olivia. Does that disrupt kind of the cutting and that sort of thing by Kristen Williams and Crystal Dangerfield? Or do you think it's kind of the way to go? Let's post Olivia up and get it inside.
Yeah, I mean, if she has a height advantage and if she's feeling it and she wanted the ball like she did today, you got to give her the ball. There was only one play that I saw, and I forget who it was on the wing. They had the ball on the wing, and they didn't get it to her. And I alluded to it, like, come on, man, you got to get her the ball. Your post player's working hard for it. Give her the ball. Now, they can cut differently. I mean, it worked back in the day when you were playing, Kara. There's different ways to cut when you have a post player. But if the defense can't stop her, why not go to her all the time?
And if they're starting to collapse inside as she gets going, somebody's open outside for a 3, which is how it should work. And that was Kristen Williams, by the way, when you were talking about that. That was such a big thing for Olivia today. You saw her play with confidence. You saw her call for the ball when she was setting screens. She was communicating. I saw one play over here with Megan Walker where she was basically telling Megan, I'm doing this, you do that, go.
Yeah, and that's that confidence that you get from being out there, going through adversity, fighting through it, coming out on the other side. And it's fun to watch them evolve and grow as a team and as individuals.
And I think it's become pretty evident against teams that they've lost to, the South Carolinas, the Oregons, the Baylors. They need a big presence if they're going to compete as they move down into March. And so, Alan and Meg, we thank you both. See it coming up Wednesday night against Tulane as we bring it back inside the studio here. And not to get lost in all this was Megan Walker. Yeah. Because she had a relatively quiet game in the loss to South Carolina. She had just 10 points in that game, 9 under her season average. Up over her season average. She had 21 in the game today. What's different when she's on her game like this?
Oh, it's a big difference to the team, not just to her, but I think they look to her for that confidence, that leadership, similar to Crystal, but different in the way Megan Walker is able to do many things. She's versatile, right? She can shoot from outside. She can take it off the bounce, get to the basket. So when things are rolling for her, it's just a lot of energy from her that carries over to the team. So they need her. I mean, bottom line, right? She can't have bad days. They're needed. From here on out, if they're going to even attempt to be a legitimate contender for national championship, she has to play like this every night.
UConn shot the ball very well as a team in the second half. They shot 62% in the second half. And then in that fourth quarter, they made 8 of their 9 shots from the field. So that's efficiency. That's the efficiency that Gino spoke about. And, you know, they've got to get Kristen Williams going. We spoke about this on our pregame show. She had a very quiet game last time out, and she had a quiet game again today. She had just 9 points and didn't shoot it well. 3 of 13. What needs to change for Kristen Williams?
Her head. I think it's her head.
You think it's up here?
I think a lot of it is up there. And like we said before, teams are focusing in on her, right? The thing about this UConn team is they need everybody to have a good night, right? One night it's Crystal, one night it's Megan. They need to put, like, double figures scoring for all their starters, but unfortunately they haven't done that. There's no consistency, and Kristen Williams, the confidence, you saw in an interview with her, she said she doesn't know all season long it's been down. If she's not making shots, she needs to do other things, get rebounds, set screens. When she takes it to the hole aggressively, I like it because that gets her going. Then she goes to the outside. So there's a lot of other things she can do. So mentally, she needs to get out of the I'm not shooting well woes and get into let me do other things, and eventually my shot will come.
By the way, what we saw from UConn in the second half, was it me or did that look like a team that was playing at a different level than we have seen in recent days?
Yeah, and I am positive, Gary, they have had a lot of team meetings. There's a lot of talk, and at some point you get sick of the talk and say, come on, let's just go out there and do it, because I don't want one more meeting with a coach, one more meeting with a player. But really, once Gino talks to you, the players get together like Crystal and talk, and you have to have the confidence as a team to get this done. If you have one person confident, another person, no. Everyone has to be on the page, same page, believe in each other and trust in each other, and that's the only way they're going to win a national championship.
Well, how about the fact that Gino didn't even come out until right as the second half was beginning? After they trailed by 4 at the half, they end up winning by 20, 67-47. So, Kara and I just getting going here on the People's United Bank postgame show. Still to come, complete game highlights, Gino Auriemma's postgame address to the media, plus a conversation with that person right there, Olivia Nelson-Ododa. A tremendous game for her today. We're coming right back. We're back inside Studio 31. Gary Applin, Kara Walters, UConn in South Florida. Saw it right here on SNY. Huskies in trouble early on, going for 131 consecutive victories in the American Conference. And Olivia Nelson-Ododa working very hard, but South Florida right back the other way in transition.
Too many threes early on for South Florida. Got to get your assignments in transition.
They had the lead by 6, and then later in that first quarter, the offensive rebound by South Florida, and beyond the arc, they knocked down the 3. The Bulls 5 of 6 from beyond the arc in that first quarter. Second quarter now, Megan Walker on the bench for a while, but she did come back into the game, and man, love the aggressiveness, stays right with it.
Yes, that sitting on the bench helped her. She came back wanting the basketball.
Nelson-Ododa inside, misses, but Walker the rebound, battles, tough bucket. She had a dozen in the first half, and just over 30 seconds to go in that first half. The Bulls had the lead by 2. That's Bethany Manunga for the jumper in the lane. South Florida had the lead by 4 at the half. Don't adjust your television sets. UConn down by 4 at the half, but a very different story in the second half.
They came out with an energy and an intensity about them scoring early on.
UConn had the lead after the Walker bucket, 31-30, and then Dangerfield to Walker. Great great vision and awareness.
Giving up the good pass for a great shot.
Nelson Adota working hard on the low block. Love that drop step.
I like it. She puts a little shoulder into it. That's strong.
This time, Adota giving it up. Dangerfield, a little floater in the lane. UConn had the lead 46-39. And then in the fourth quarter, UConn took over. They led by 7. Walker, the jumper here, going to put the Huskies up by 9. This was their largest lead of the game at that point. She's been tremendous for the Huskies. And then soon later, Dangerfield to Nelson Adota. And again, look at her here. Sliding off the beautiful feed inside and finishing.
Setting screens and then rolling to the basket. Basic basketball 101. When they do that, they get it done.
And the freshman, Aubrey Griffin, very active.
Very active, athletic, like Megan said. Her defense turns to her offense.
So UConn down by 4 at the half. They come back. They get the win 67-47. They continue to roll in the American Conference. They've never lost in the American. They're now 30-0 all-time against South Florida. And that's now 985 consecutive wins, games for UConn without back-to-back losses. So, good game for Olivia Nelson-Adota. Moments ago, she visited with Maria Marino.
Olivia, you've said all season that you wanted to be aggressive. Do you feel like you've been showing that more lately the past few games?
Yeah, I think so. Not just me, but everybody else on the team. I think we collectively try to become more aggressive, kind of carry that mentality into the games that we play.
What were you seeing on the floor today, and what was working for you?
As a team, we came out a little slow, but, coming out of halftime, we were able to turn that around and I think pick up the defensive intensity. And also on offense, just kind of run through our stuff better and then also finish better, too.
How important was it for you and the team to get a bounce back today?
It's really important. Coming back from the game last Monday, we have things to improve on. And so each game we're trying to work on that. Each practice that we have, we're trying to just fix those things, watch film, critique ourselves and the things that we need to work on. And so I think us being able to turn around at halftime and kind of come back like this and fight through that is definitely improvement.
All right. Thanks so much, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Olivia, we thank you and Maria as well. She mentioned twice during that interview coming out at halftime. Yeah. I can only imagine, you've been in those halftime conversations with the Hall of Famer. I can only imagine what was going on with him at the half.
He highly suggests things, put it that way. I highly suggest you guys go out there and be a different team in the second half, but they just came out with a lot of energy. Like, it was a different vibe in the second half than the first, and I think they're starting to slowly get it. Their defense leads to their offense. They've done it. That's been their bread and butter for years. So let's start on the defensive end, and then we'll get the offense going, but sure did. The steals, Aubrey Griffin, everyone getting active hands. I felt like in the second half, they were more active and they were getting to those 50-50 balls more. Where in the first half, I think USF got to more of the 50-50 balls. So you saw how much more aggressive, active hands, active feet on defense, and then they go down the other end. Against South Carolina, they only had 3 fast break points. So this is a team that their defense leads to their offense. So they need to get it going there, and then that's a good way, right? When things aren't falling, let's focus on defense. Eventually, we'll turn it around in the offense.
Well, I always say, listen, you have your games when your offense is there and your games when it's not there. But the defense and the defensive effort
can always be there.
Can always be there.
Right.
And that's the separator between good teams and great teams. Because if you can show up every single day and night on the defensive end, you can win basketball games.
And that's just flat out effort. I don't care how talented you are.
And I think we saw the effort better in the second.
Yes, it's not how talented you are. It's the effort and the heart that you put into defense and rebounding. Those are the 2 places where I don't care if you're Molly Bent or if you're Megan Walker, right? That defensively you should be able, obviously there's some, saying about athleticism, but if you're a smart player, you can still play really good defense. So that is definitely their thing. If they can make their defense really solid, especially when shots aren't falling, it'll come on the offense.
I'm going to mark this down. I'm wondering if this second half is going to be the start of something that could lead to something down the road that we'll say, okay, that's when it happened. Second half of the South Florida game.
Like you're waiting for it to click, right?
Just it looked like it clicked in that second half, but we'll see it gets better competition.
They can sustain that.
Right, when they get into the tournament. I do want to hit on one bit of concern, I think, is Anna Makarat. Back-to-back games now where she has not scored. She's 0 for 8 from the field over the course of her last 2 games. What are you seeing from Anna?
Well, I think she's the prime example, Gary, of your defense can lead to your offense, especially when you're not shooting well. And honestly, Anna Makarad is not a good defender, okay? Now, I've said that to you before. I think it has something to do with kind of her foreign experience. It was basically outscore everybody. That's what happens internationally. I'm going to put up more points than you. And defense, if you watch her, she turns her head. She doesn't get to spots. She really is not a great defender. So I think if she can add that defense, like we talked about, UConn's defense leading to offense, her in particular, if she can do other things and play good defense, eventually, the shots have to fall eventually, right? So I think really it's her. She's a prime example of do other things to lead to your offense, because we know she's a good shooter, right?
Yes.
We know she's got a good basketball IQ, so now she can lock down on the defensive end and just keep shooting. She's going to be a great player. We're going to see down the line, but I think there have been some disappointing times from her this season, and hopefully she shakes it off and continues, because she has potential.
It has been a big learning curve. She's had her really good moments, and then, as we've seen over the last couple of games, not so good moments. More to come here on our post-game broadcast. When we come back, going to hear from Gino Auriemma, his post-game address to the media. We know he was not happy after the South Carolina game, and for good reason. I would imagine we'll see a different Gino.
You never know.
You never know.
He's very picky.
We'll find out. We'll hear from Gino when we come back. It is Drive of the Game presented by Subaru. In that third quarter, Kristen Williams getting it ahead to Aubrey Griffin, and the freshman really strong off the bench. She had 8 points off the bench. We really saw how athletic she is. We go back to that word, athletic, but she really is the epitome of that. It is the Drive of the Game. It's presented by Subaru. UConn getting the win by 20, 67-47 over South Florida, despite the fact that they only really took over the game in the second half. They trailed this game by 4 at the half. Let's hear from the Hall of Fame head coach, Gino Auriemma, his post-game address to the media right now.
Coach, it was really a tale of 2 halves today. I'm sure you're pleased with how they responded after halftime, but what were the adjustments you all made, or what was the difference between how they started and how your team was able to finish?
Thanks, Anna. The pattern for us, more times than I'd like to admit, or more times than I care, is a pretty good defensive effort kind of being wasted because our offense just struggles so bad. It's just so much. It's just so much harder to try to win games when every offensive possession is like a slog, and that's what it feels like. It feels like we're working so hard to get buckets, and then in the second half, we got a bunch of easy ones. So the biggest adjustment was, we got a few more rebounds, a few more loose balls. Aubrey came in and really changed the game a little bit. The pressure she was able to put on their point guard. And then offensively, we got into a little bit of a flow. And then when we did, all of a sudden we start making shots. All of a sudden things do look good. So it's been a year-long struggle, to try to find that formula. But it's been it's been a trying season so far offensively, and our defense keeps us in most games. So if we can figure the offensive part out, we'll be okay.
Coach, it appeared y'all made a concerted effort to really close in on their three-point shooters in the second half. I think Jose said they had 1 uncontested 3 after halftime.
Yeah. What ends up happening when you play a team like USF is they are really good at wearing you down. So they'll change sides of the floor 3 or 4 times. And the minute you make a mistake, turn your head, anything, they're able to get in the lane. You're looking to see where they went, and then they're finding the open three-point shooter. So though we did a much better job of not letting them break us down individually, so we didn't have to help as much. So we were able to stay more connected to the shooters. Our on-the-ball defense was way better.
Gino, what do you think about Aubrey, and how have you seen her develop these last few weeks?
She's become really, really what's the word? She's become a constant source of bewilderment for me, because I'll go work out with her at practice and she'll do like all these amazing things, and then when we start playing, she won't do any of them. So I asked her the other day, I said, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this if you're not going to do them in the game? And she's not as comfortable right now on the offensive end. But when she gets her defense going, she creates a lot of things for us. And today she created a lot of things for herself. But she has the ability to change games. She does. She does. Today we pretty much took a gamble, because usually I have a hard time finding a place for her when our offense is struggling. So today, even though we were struggling offensively, I thought, got to find a place for her anyway. And I thought Aubrey and Olivia were the two that really impacted the game the most today.
There's no question, when Aubrey came off the bench, it was a different vibe for UConn. They were energized, and so she played very well in the victory for the Huskies, 67-47 over South Florida. Not finished yet here on our post-game show. When we come back, I want to take a look, sights and sounds of today's victory for the Huskies, and a look ahead next Wednesday. Next game's coming up Wednesday against Tulane. We'll look ahead to that one when we come right back. So you can catch UConn's next game right here on SNY. The Huskies take on Tulane on Wednesday, getting you set for all the action beginning at 6:30 p.m. It's the UConn Women's Basketball pregame show right here on your home for UConn Women's Basketball. Again, it is SNY. So a trying first half for UConn. They led South Florida by 4 at the break. They end up winning by 20. That's it for us. For Kara Walters, I'm Gary Appley. Thank you for joining us on the way out the door. The sights and sounds of UConn's victory over South Florida. Enjoy.